In the Algerian city of Djelfa, where the arid landscape gives way to winding village paths, one neighborhood has witnessed an unimaginable story of horror and resilience. Until recently, its residents had assumed Omar Bin Omran, missing for 26 years, had fallen victim to the turmoil that plagued Algeria in the 1990s. Civil war had swept the region with a ferocity that tore families apart, leaving countless sons, daughters, fathers, and mothers unaccounted for. So when Omar disappeared at 17, his family thought he was lost to this chaos. But nearly 3 decades later, Omar was found, shockingly close to the home he'd left behind, a captive in the cellar of his own neighbor. This is The Missing Boy of Djelfa. It was the spring of 1998 when Omar vanished. A quiet teenager from Djelfa, Omar was on his way to vocational school when he seemingly disappeared into thin air. His family launched a search, driven by the hope that he'd return with the same shy smile they knew so well. They scoured the city and called on local authorities for support, but their son was nowhere to be found. Given the country's civil unrest and mounting fatalities, they began to fear for the worst. Algeria's civil war had become an unending cycle of violence, with government forces clashing against Islamist rebel groups. Families were accustomed to receiving only partial closure, the absence of bodies or clear answers when loved ones vanished. Omar's parents, devastated and exhausted, clung to a faint hope for years. They set an extra plate for him at dinner, their hearts heavy with the ache of unknowing. Yet the signs were there, just within reach. Omar's dog, who had often accompanied him around town, seemed to have an inkling of his whereabouts. Shortly after Omar's disappearance, the dog took to standing at the doorstep of their neighbor's property, a behavior that confounded Omar's family. Days passed and then weeks, with the dog returning to the neighbor's house, sitting at the entrance as if it sensed Omar's presence. Tragically, the dog too disappeared, adding another dark mystery to the family's ongoing ordeal. It was years later that Omar's family would come to believe the animal was poisoned, perhaps by the very person who held Omar captive. The boy's alleged captor was an unassuming civil servant in his 60s, known to live alone. A man who, to his neighbors, appeared ordinary, even benign. Yet there were signs, whispers that circulated but were too faint for anyone to believe. Over the years, some neighbors noticed his peculiar shopping habits, frequent trips to buy food for two, though he lived by himself. He rarely socialized, blending into the fabric of the neighborhood as easily as anyone could who harbored such a dreadful secret. Omar's family had long since given up actively searching. His mother, heartbroken and weary from years of mourning, passed away in 2013 without ever knowing the truth. She left this world in grief, believing her son had been claimed by the violence that had ravaged Algeria. Omar, however, remained just a few yards away, concealed under layers of hay, hidden in a makeshift cellar. The story might have remained buried if not for an inheritance dispute. The man accused of kidnapping Omar had reportedly argued with his brother over the family's assets. Amid the feud, his brother made a startling accusation on social media that he knew something about Omar's long-missing whereabouts. Omar's family, desperate but skeptical, followed up on this lead. On May 12, 2024, they stormed the suspect's house. In the faint evening light, officials from the National Gendarmerie approached the home, proceeding cautiously as they uncovered a cellar hidden within a sheep pen. They moved aside stacks of hay until they glimpsed a sight they would never forget. Omar, alive but disheveled, cowered in the corner of a crude pit, his eyes wide with shock as he faced the torchlights. News of his recovery spread across Algeria like wildfire. In an instant, Djelfa was thrust into the national spotlight as the country tried to comprehend how such a horror could occur so close to home. Television stations broadcast the grainy, unsteady footage, capturing Omar's haunted gaze and his slow, hesitant movements as he was guided out of the hole where he had spent almost 3 decades. While the scenes of Omar's rescue seemed a miraculous closure to his tragic story, it was only the beginning of his long road to recovery. Now, 45 years old, he had lived in isolation since his teenage years, a life devoid of connection or choice. The psychological toll on Omar has been immense. Algerian authorities quickly ensured he received medical and psychological care, though the depths of his trauma are still unknown. Neighbors and media outlets raised a chilling question. Why hadn't Omar called for help over all these years? The answer may be locked in the complex realm of psychological captivity. Some reports suggested his captor may have used superstitions, casting what Omar believed to be a spell that prevented him from fleeing. For a society where beliefs in the supernatural still hold weight, this explanation struck a chord, even as experts suspected his trauma and mental manipulation were just as potent barriers to his escape. Omar's story eerily echoes that of J.C. Dugard in the United States, whose disappearance in 1991 led to 18 years in captivity at the hands of Philip and Nancy Garrido. Like Omar, Dugard was imprisoned in a space close enough to civilization that neighbors could have potentially intervened. The inability to escape, even in close proximity to freedom, often stems from a potent mix of trauma, manipulation, and learned helplessness, a tragic reality Omar's case seemed to confirm. The neighborhood of Djelfa remains in shock, processing the revelations and grappling with the guilt over the years they spent living alongside Omar's alleged captor. Algerian media highlighted the peculiar detail of the captor's grocery habits, a pattern that, in retrospect, might have served as a clue. His poor mom died while he was in captivity without knowing what had happened to him, without knowing that all this time he was really right beside her. A neighbor lamented to a local TV station, her face etched with a sadness that has swept across Djelfa. For Algerian authorities, the case was now a matter of national importance, with the public prosecutor's office promising to try the alleged captor with severity. Their statement offered a glimmer of assurance to a society questioning how justice could ever fully address the wrongs committed against Omar. For his surviving family members, Omar's rediscovery brings the bittersweet challenge of healing in the wake of so much trauma. His cousin expressed relief in a Facebook post. "Thank God my cousin was found. Bin Omran Omar is in good health after 26 years of disappearance, awaiting the details of the case and investigations." The road ahead will be challenging, but Omar's release marks the start of what could be a redemptive journey. Algeria's Ministry of Justice, in a rare move, vowed to protect Omar's rights and provide him with the care that he deserves, underscoring the nation's commitment to preventing such an atrocity from repeating. As Algeria comes to terms with Omar's story, his reemergence has forced the country to confront the lurking potential for tragedy, even within the ordinary. The haunting tale of Omar Bin Omran will likely resonate across Djelfa for generations, a reminder that life's greatest horrors can sometimes unfold in the most familiar places. The case may now stand among the longest instances of captivity on record, a mystery that leaves Djelfa grappling with the weight of what was hidden in plain sight. The silence has ended for Omar, and with it, the neighborhood of Djelfa must live with questions, and for now, few answers.